Republican Senate candidate Pat Toomey joins us now. Hi, thank you for coming in.
Thanks for having me.
You sure you want to be a U.S. Senator from Pennsylvania?
I do. I do. These are tough times.
Daunting
serious times. But one of the things that these times certainly require is a laser-like focus on job growth.
Yes.
I'm glad that last segment underscored the importance of that. I'm glad to see it appears that the administration is shifting its focus away from this health care bill to creating jobs. I certainly hope so. That should be the #1 priority.
It seems almost like a misstep in their calculation, really pushing through health care when jobs are screaming like a neon sign as the #1 issue. This is something we did yesterday, a job fair at the Wachovia Center. We expected a couple of hundred people, maybe 1,000 or two. 7,000 people, close to 7,000 people showed up, and they're scared to death. How do you create jobs?
Well, first of all, you make sure that you don't inflict the kind of policies that will destroy jobs. And I'm afraid that this administration, between all the tax increases, huge new regulations, mandates, the health care bill, cap and trade, I mean, those things will kill jobs, and they discourage entrepreneurs from taking risks and creating new jobs. What I think we ought to do, rescind the unspent money of the stimulus bill that clearly failed, and instead of that, lower taxes, especially payroll taxes. If we had an across-the-board cut in payroll taxes for workers and employers, then every worker would immediately get a take-home pay raise, and every employer would find it less expensive to hire the next worker.
You know, I was talking to a man yesterday, and he said, you know, we need to get our lawmakers out here. They need to see these lines, you know. And he brought up a really good point. It seems like, you know, when they introduce these bills, and to these people, sometimes it sounds like French, but they introduce all these great ideas. Even if it happens, by the time it happens, these folks, you know, they need stuff. They need help now, not 6 months from now.
And that's part of why the administration shouldn't have spent a year on an effort to take over the healthcare industry of America. Now, as I say, hopefully they'll focus now. But, you know, one of the problems with all these stimulus bills, and the House just passed another one that won't work last month, they need all these so-called shovel-ready jobs. Well, where are they? It's very, very hard to make that work. That's why I like the idea of lowering taxes, especially a payroll tax cut. The minute that goes into effect, people have a take-home pay raise. I mean, it happens that week, literally. And employers, the matching cut means they could hire a worker that week at a lower cost. So I think that's a much more direct and much more effective way to stimulate job growth.
You know, others would say that the stimulus packages have worked. They would be against what you just said. Now, what did you want to do, the banks to fail completely?
Well, there's two separate categories, but first of all, the stimulus bill, there's a lot of government spending, is just transferring money from one pot to another, taking money out of the productive private sector and putting it into government, doesn't create net new jobs. The TARP program, bailing out failing companies, is a mistake. Yes, I think, frankly, we should have allowed some companies to fail. Remember, bankruptcy is not a death sentence. It's a reorganization. It's an opportunity to restructure liabilities and balance sheets, sell off the viable assets, but there's just no justification for forcing taxpayers to bail out failing businesses.
You admit that a lot of our problems is rooted in the Bush administration.
I think you know what I think is totally underappreciated is the fact that the problem is rooted in the monetary policy of the Fed. The Fed created a credit bubble by keeping interest rates too low artificially for too long, and that's what kicked this off. It helped make the housing bubble, which of course burst and caused this problem.
Let's talk about your race. I was looking at some statistics this morning against Arlen Specter, obviously, for the Pennsylvania Senate. It says Republican Pat Toomey, you now lead incumbent Senator Arlen Specter, 49% to 40%. I've talked with Specter and some of his folks. They know they've got a race here. Sestak, obviously, we have to mention him too.
Yeah, Joe's going.
Yeah,
hey, what about
Congressman Joe Sestak. But all of you guys acknowledge that this is going to be tough. And in the wake of Massachusetts, a lot of people are saying it's not so much that they voted for a Republican, they just wanted something different. The attention span and the patience, I think, for people at this point, they don't care about your side, they just want something different.
Well, I agree, it's not about Republicanism. That's certainly not what people are voting for. But I think what they're trying to do is send a message to Washington that these guys are out of control. I mean, serial bailouts, nationalizing whole industries, staggering spending, unprecedented deficits, trying to take over 1/6 of our economy. That's not what the American people want this federal government to focus on. And they've been concerned that no one's listening. And that's why we've seen the kind of election results that we've seen. I think that's why I have so much broad support across the Commonwealth and across party lines, because the kinds of things I've been arguing for, limiting the size of government, getting spending under control, remembering that opportunities and jobs have to come from the private sector. That's the only sustainable source of job growth and prosperity. I think most people agree with that, and that's why my campaign's doing so well.
Will you be like Senator Scott Brown out of Massachusetts and not have the word Republican on your tour bus?
I'm a Republican. I'm happy to be a Republican. I'm proud to be a Republican. But I think what's more important than a party label is the principles and the ideas. And I think the ideas that I've been talking about will get our economy moving again. I think Joe Sestak and Arlen Specter both are mired in that Washington mindset. They've supported all the stimulus, all the bailouts, all the big government. That's not the right approach.
And we have calls out to them, of course, Joe
Sure.
Sestak and Arlen Specter, and they'll be on the show as a rebuttal in the next few weeks. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.